Early on, this movie had a different title, Bad Boy it was called, which was fitting since James Cagney was kind of the bad boy of the movies in 1933. Speaking of which, I hope you caught that inside joke in the film, the one that played off Cagney's association with grapefruit. In that scene where Cagney promotes grapefruit, well, it was a grapefruit, you recall, which Cagney shoved in the face of Mae Clarke in the movie that made him a star, The Public Enemy. Just ahead, more material that gave censors a sleepless night or two. The movie is called Under 18, starring Warren William and Marion Marsh, but you don't have to be over 18 to watch it. Stick around. Hi there, I'm Robert Osborne. The subject at hand is sassy dames indulging in some risque business. Now, long before Joan Crawford became the glamour queen of the MGM lot back at the end of the Roaring '20s, she was the studio's ultimate flapper. Then came the stock market crash of 1929. The talkies were in and flappers were out. But MGM had had several hits with flaming youth movies starring Joan Crawford, films like Our Dancing Daughters, and they weren't about to let a little thing like the Depression spoil the sight of Joan Crawford doing the Charleston and drinking bootleg booze, and because of it, pulling in customers to the box office. So in 1931, MGM came up with our next film, which is called Dance, Fools, Dance. It's a title that doesn't have much to do with the movie, but has a lot to do with Joan Crawford's screen image. In this one, Joan is again playing a playgirl, which we discover very early when she and her pals strip down to their underwear and go swimming. Not only that, but it's also clear in this movie that she and her boyfriend do more than just Charleston together. So it's no wonder that Dance Fools Dance became one of the films that caused raised eyebrows at the Hays office and led to much stricter enforcement of the production code in Hollywood. One of the great treats of this movie is seeing Joan Crawford working with the man she often loved on screen and, as she later admitted, always loved off screen, that man being Clark Gable. Here they are in a racy film from 1931, Dance Fools Dance. Hi there, I'm Robert Osborne. We have more George Brent and Barbara Stanwyck coming right up. Well, actually, we have the two of them with us until the wee hours of the morning in 3 more of the films they made together. And up next, they co-star in a very saucy film called Babyface, a film which actually was banned for many, many years. It was made in 1933, just before Hollywood began enforcing its production code. And once that code was enforced, there were very strict rules as to what could and what couldn't be shown on screen. So suddenly, Babyface couldn't be shown anymore. It's because in the movie, Barbara Stanwyck beds down with a series of men for reasons that have nothing to do with domesticity or having babies, and the production code didn't allow that sort of behavior in a movie. At first, Warner Brothers was going to just shoot some new scenes for the movie to replace the ones that the censors now found objectionable, but unfortunately, neither Barbara Stanwyck nor George Brent were available to do those scenes. So instead of just adding scenes, they just recut the movie as best they could. But still, some areas like the state of Virginia refused to show this movie in any version. Now, this version you're about to see is the only one that still exists, and it is indeed a hoot to watch. Something to keep an eye out for in the movie. In a supporting role, playing one of the guys that Barbara Stanwyck seduces, is 26-year-old John Wayne in his one and only movie appearance with Barbara Stanwyck. And that's something she later said she really regretted, that she only got to work once with John Wayne. This is that one time. From 1933, Babyface. Hi there, I'm Robert Osborne. Tonight on Turner Classic Movies, we've got a really special treat in store for you. Producer George Stevens Jr. will be joining me to pay tribute to his father, director George Stevens Sr. We're going to begin at 8 p.m. Eastern with a fascinating portrait of George Stevens Sr., produced by his son. It's the documentary called George Stevens, A Filmmaker's Journey. And then at 10 o'clock, Alan Ladd stars as a gunslinger who drifts into the lives of a farming family in a truly classic Western. And we're very proud to present the restoration premiere of that Western. It's George Stevens' masterpiece, Shane. And later at 12:15 a.m., Montgomery Clift plays a young man who crosses the boundaries separating poor and rich. George Stevens won an Oscar for directing this drama, which also stars Elizabeth Taylor and Shelley Winters. It's called A Place in the Sun. Well, we've got a place for director George Stevens right here on Turner Classic Movies, and it starts tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. This movie was made smack in the midst of the Depression, and one can only imagine what people thought when they saw that Money being spent by Hollywood on a movie when many people in America didn't have enough money to buy much more than an apple and a movie ticket, because movie tickets in those days, you know, cost only about a dime or a quarter. But then maybe Madame du Barry was just the kind of escape people wanted when they couldn't afford more than an apple. Right now, coming up, another fun story, but this one was made in Barbados and Nova Scotia with French actors. That's a switch. It is the story of Adele H., starring Isabella Johnny and directed by Francois Truffaut in 1975. Coming up next. Hi there, I'm Robert Osborne. We're letting you, TCM viewers, pick the picks tonight. And our next movie request comes from Crystal Schmidt of Rochester, New York. And Crystal has picked a movie that really packed them into movie houses in 1937. It's called Confession, and it stars Kay Francis, an actress often referred to as the movie's most valuable sob sister. Because in most of Kay Francis's movies, there's always something to sob about. Maybe a divorce or an infidelity, a fatal illness, or a love that could never be. Something that Kay would face gallantly while her fans watched out there in the dark, sobbing, sobbing, sobbing. That was the Kay Francis formula, and it made millions for her bosses at Warner Brothers. And this movie we're about to see, called Confession, is Kay Francis at her best. All I can say is that the movie opens in a courtroom where Kay is on trial for killing a man, but she won't defend herself. Only she knows why the man is dead, and only she knows why she can't say a word to save her own skin. And from there on, we find out even what the court doesn't know. It's a sob story refined to an art form. It's also adapted from a German film called Mazurka, which had starred Pola Negri. But not even Pola Negri could ever suffer quite like Kay Francis, who in this version is very handsomely also decked out in gowns by Ori Kelly and surrounded by two suave leading men, Basil Rathbone and Ian Hunter. So here at the request of Crystal Schmidt, here is Confession from Warner Brothers in 1937, Kay Francis being very Kay Francis. One year before this movie was made, the same story had been filmed in Germany under the title Mazurka, starring Pola Negri. And Warner Brothers had a look at that film and they decided, hey, that's a pretty good story. We should do an American version. So they bought the distribution rights to the German film and then shelved it permanently so it would not interfere in any way with the version they were planning. And when they remade Mazurka into the movie we just saw, they remade it scene for scene. I mean, shot for shot, exactly like the German original. I mean, they didn't change a thing. Only the actors and their wardrobes were changed. Up next, another movie requested by a TCM viewer, so stick with us for Joey Brown in a comedy called Earthworm Tractors.